Okay, hello everybody. Today we are looking at using text in Pygame, and we're looking at how to create fonts and then draw with text onto the screen. Okay, so for today's lesson, I've given you template code to start off with, and this code is pretty much identical to the same code we had before. Importing Pygames, we've got colors, we've got our screen, we've got our caption, and we've got our main loop here. And remember back from last lesson, we looked at using the screen.fill to just fill the screen with a white background on our surface, which is called screen. Okay, and or also our pygame.display.flip, which then shows it to the user. So everything we're going to do today is going to be inside this section here, the draw section of our main while loop. Okay, so to draw with fonts, there are three main stages, three main parts you need to do. So to draw text on the screen, text, there are three stages. Stage one, the first stage is you need to set up what font you are going to use. So for this, we are going to create a variable to store our font in, and we're going to initialize this pygame.font. Let me explain this in a second. So we've got the library we are using, Pygame, which has been imported. We've got our package, which is font, and we've got an object for fonts that we are going to use. It's not a method, it's an object, a font object we're going to be using. Okay. Then inside our brackets here, we've got a few values we need to declare. Well, to start off with, we're going to start off with a font called, just going to put in none here. Okay, so none basically is going to use the default blank font in Pygames that it just sets up. Okay, so it's a basic font, sans serif font that you can use. You don't have to declare its font name. Secondly, we've got the size of the font. Okay, I'm going to set 25 for the moment, which sounds quite big, but we'll see what it looks like. Step 2, once we've declared our font, we then have to basically create a stamper to render it onto the screen. So step 2 we've got is here, creating a stamper. So text equals font.render, and I'm going to put the text that I want to display, so just my text, just for dummy text at the moment. The second value in this is true. Now this basically sets something called anti-alias, which helps make the fonts crisp and clear on the screen. Okay, don't worry about that too much, but that just means, just set it to true for the moment, so we have our clear writing on the screen. And finally, we're going to have a colour for the font. So I'm going to use the black colour, which I defined right up here at the top here. You can use any of the colours that you've set up already. So this basically creates a stamper to render the text onto the screen, to put it onto the screen. And you've got the text you're going to use, anti-alias, and the colour. So we've got our font, we've got our text. The final stage then is to actually stamp, to actually place it onto the screen. Now to do that, basically we're going to take the stamper and use it. And we have a function called screen, which is our surface we are drawing on, because we created it earlier, .blit. Now blit means basically is a method which draws something onto the screen. In this case we are drawing our text onto the screen. And what am I drawing? Well, I'm going to draw my text, which I've defined here, onto the screen. And also we need to declare where we're going to draw it. So in brackets here, we've got, I'm going to put it at 100 by 100. So I've given an X and a Y coordinate on the screen that I want to draw this text. Okay. Now if I run this, see what happens. I have, over here, if I can drag on the screen, I've got my text. Again, it's quite small, isn't it? Okay, so 25 isn't the same kind of size as you would have normally, okay, in like a Word document. So let's go back on here, just to show we can change this. Let's make that font bigger. I'm going to go 50, and I'm going to change my text, maybe text color. Let's change the text color to one of the other colors I've got here. I've got red. So change the color, and I'll change my text as well, just to show you can change this. Hello students. Run it again, and I've got my new changed text here, bigger and red. Okay. Now at the moment, every time it goes round this loop here in this while loop, it is declaring the font, rendering it, and then stamping it every single time, which works. Basically, we don't need to declare the font every single time. Okay, we only need to declare it once at the start, and then we'll use it within our loop. So this line here, this declaring font, setting up our font, we can actually move out of the while loop and put it back up here. So I'm going to put it outside the while loop here. So before the loop started, and make sure it's not indented, make sure it's in line with the left. Now that might not actually seem that important, but actually if you're running, hundreds of lines of code, taking it out of the loop is one less line of code that needs to be run inside the loop. It can help you improve the performance of your game, and it should run exactly the same. The font is declared at the start and it runs. Okay, so now so far we've got a piece of text and a font working fine. However, at the moment, our text here is this basic horrible font, okay? What if we wanted to use a different font? Well, we could use one of the fonts installed on Windows. Now, if you've got a home computer, you could search through and look at any of the fonts you've got installed here, okay? There are hundreds of fonts installed on a computer. However, the problem is, to do that, you'd have to access to the C drive in order to do that, to access these fonts and use them. You need to know where it is so you can load them from the C drive. Now, unfortunately, in school and other places, you might not have access to the C drive. So instead, what we need to do is actually download and save a font in the same folder as the website. So for example, we can go to a website such as 1001 Free Fonts, and there are thousands of fonts you can choose from on this website. Say for example we wanted to use Speedboom, that's a good one. Download the font, save it into your area, and this font here needs to be saved into your same folder as your game. So this little file here, Speedboom Demo Regular, needs to be saved in the same folder as your Pygames is running. So you drag it into the same folder, and you can have multiple fonts in the same folder, and it should now be in there. Okay, I can see my Speedboom Demo Regular.ttf. That's my font file I'm going to use. So now I'm going to take the name of this, including the .ttf at the end, the extension, the file extension. I'm going to go back to my code, and where it says none, I'm going to change that none speech marks because it's a string, and then the name of the font. Okay, so I'm telling it to find a font named Speedboom Demo Regular.ttf in the same folder as my Pygame script, and all I have to do that is then if I run my game again, I can now see that it's got my new font. It's loaded the font and it's rendered it and used it on my game screen. Okay, so what if I wanted to have more than one font and more than one style of font? Well, just like we've done, we could declare another one. Okay, so up here, I could simply declare another font. I'm going to call this one font 2. And I could have a different font. So in my folder here, I have another one ready. Let's choose Lato Regular.ttf. I've got another font in the same folder. I'm going to change this one here. I could change this one to be a different size. So let's make this one smaller. Let's do this from 30. And the same down here again, where I have created my stamper and I've rendered it. Again, I'm going to call this a different piece of text. So down here, text 2. I'm going to put a different message, goodbye, for example. I could change my color. Let's set it back to black for this example. So I have created my font up here, my new font, number 2. I have created my stamper here for my new text. And then finally, exactly the same as we did before. Oh, I've just realized one mistake, apologies. I'm going to use my different font here. So instead of original font, I'm going to do font 2 here. So I'm using my new font. And then finally, I'm going to blitz it onto the screen. We're going to draw the image on the screen. And this time it's going to be text 2. Now at the moment, the X and the Y position is exactly the same as this one. Now I don't want to draw my text on top of it, because if I do that, it will look something like this, which is really bad. It's in the same location here. Okay, so remember you can change the X and the Y coordinate. In this case, remember the X is going along, the Y going down. I'm going to make my text underneath, so I'm going to change the Y coordinate only in this example. So X, Y, let's make it 250. So I've changed my Y coordinate going down for text 2. I'll run it again, and I should have my text underneath. You can see it's gone down quite a way there, so you can change your X and the Y coordinates depending on the position that you want to put it on the screen. Okay, so you know now how to set up a font. Sorry, apologies, let me find it. You know how to set up a font. You know how to save custom fonts into your folder and change the size. You know how to create a stamper and render the font and the text you want to put. And finally, you know how to blit to stamp to the screen, and we have our coordinates of where you want to put it on the screen. So here's your challenge, students. I now want to see if you can use these skills to create a screen, something like this, a menu screen. Try to have at least 2 different fonts, try to have different positionings on the screen, and see if you can create a mock menu screen similar to that using text and fonts. There's your challenge, students. Good luck, and I'll see you in the next video.